Why every dark chosen one must endure these 7 night attacks. The night has always been more than a time of sleep. For the average person, it is rest, recovery, a pause before another day begins. But for those who carry the energy of the dark chosen ones, the night is an initiation ground, a training field where shadows push against the edges of your being to test your strength. You might have noticed this already. Nights where you wake up in fear with your heart racing. Nights where you sense presences around your bed, though no one is there. Nights where your dreams are not dreams, but battlefields. This is not random, and it is not punishment. It is preparation. Every dark chosen one must endure these 7 night attacks, because only through surviving them do we discover the hidden power inside us that daylight could never reveal. The first sign that night attacks are real is the simple fact that you cannot run from them. You can distract yourself during the day, pretend to be normal, bury yourself in tasks and noise, but at night, when the world is quiet and your defenses are lowered, the truth of your vibration is exposed. That is why darkness tests you then. It knows that if you can hold your ground when you are tired, when no one is watching, when no applause or recognition is present, then you are the real thing. So every chosen one feels the shadows pressing in at some point, sometimes in the form of terrifying dreams, sometimes in sleep paralysis, sometimes in an atmosphere of dread you cannot explain.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
But why must you endure it? Because without pressure, you never know how strong your spirit is. Without the challenge of shadow, you never understand the force of your own light. Night attacks strip away the illusions of comfort. They bring you face to face with your raw vibration, with the truth of whether you are fragile or forged. They also reveal the weaknesses in your armor. But if guilt still chains you, it will appear in your dreams. If you carry resentment, it will manifest as dark figures chasing you. If you are full of hidden fear, the night will show it to you in forms that make your blood run cold. And every time you endure, you have a choice: collapse into fear or rise with awareness. I want you to reflect for a moment. How many nights in your life have you woken with that sense of pressure, like the air itself was heavy with something watching? How many times have you brushed it off as stress or coincidence? What if those were not random, but invitations to step into your calling? The chosen ones are tested differently. We do not get gentle nudges, we get storms that shake us awake. And the night is the perfect battlefield for these storms, because it is when the rest of the world is quiet enough for us to truly face them. Now here is something practical. When night attacks come, your natural instinct is to resist, to fight the shadow directly. But what if I told you that resisting is not the point? The true lesson is to recognize that shadows only feed when you fear them. Fear is the currency they trade in, the permission they require. The chosen ones learn, attack by attack, to withdraw that currency, to stand still in the nightmare and realize, you cannot touch me unless I agree. This is not a theory, it is a lived truth that transforms you. When you stop fearing fear itself, when you meet the nightmare with presence, it loses power. Every chosen one I have met has gone through the same stages. At first, they are terrified of the night, afraid to fall asleep. Then, slowly, they begin to understand the rhythm, to recognize patterns in the attacks. Eventually, they arrive at mastery, where the attacks no longer shake them, but instead sharpen them. Think about it, why would demons waste their energy on someone who cannot be rattled, Why would darkness test someone who has already proven that fear does not live in them anymore? The very fact that you are attacked is evidence of your potential. You are targeted because your vibration is strong enough to be worth testing. And the attacks themselves are not random, but they come in 7 distinct forms, each one designed to teach you something essential. Some attacks come through the body, like paralysis or sudden jolts. Some come through the mind, with invasive thoughts or looping nightmares. Some come through the spirit, where you wake up feeling drained, as though something tried to siphon your energy while you slept. These are not just assaults, they are lessons. Each one reveals a part of yourself you must master. Let me ask you a question that only you can answer. Are you willing to see your nights as classrooms rather than curses? Because that is the difference between the average soul and the chosen one. The average soul flees from the night, medicates it, drowns it in distractions. But the chosen one leans in and asks, "What are you trying to show me? Where am I weak? Where am I strong?" That willingness to face the invisible is what forges the rare few who carry the title of Dark Chosen Ones. And the attacks, though terrifying, are actually gifts. They refine your awareness, sharpen your instincts, deepen your connection to the unseen. They teach you to navigate dimensions most people don't even believe exist. They strip away the illusion that life is only physical and remind you that you are playing on a field far larger than what your eyes perceive. And by enduring them, you claim a power no one can take from you. The first stage of becoming unshakable is simply surviving the night. The second stage is transforming survival into strength. And the third is recognizing that these 7 attacks are not punishments but the necessary rites of passage every dark chosen one must face. It is not easy, but it was never supposed to be. You were never called to live an easy life. You were called to live a significant one. Now that we have opened the door and seen why these attacks happen, in the next part we will go deeper into the first 2 night attacks, those that assault the body and the mind, and reveal why they are essential for shaping your inner power. The hidden power inside the first 2 night attacks that break most souls, and how they forge you into a guardian. Night Attack 1. The assault on the body. For many dark chosen ones, the first blows come not as visions, but as violence against the flesh, sleep paralysis, sudden waking jolts, unexplained aches, the waves of nausea or suffocating pressure on the chest that makes breath feel like a negotiation. These are not random physiological failures. They are tests aimed where you are most vulnerable, the container that holds your consciousness. Why the body? Because if the vessel collapses, the spirit is exposed and scatter. The lesson is brutal and practical. When the body is attacked, you learn somatic sovereignty, the ability to own and regulate your nervous system even when external conditions scream otherwise. This is not mystical language, it is training. You learn to ground through breath work, to anchor through simple micro-practices, slow exhalations until the panic pulse drops, feeling the points of contact between your body and the bed, naming sensations without story. Each physical assault teaches you to return to the present moment, because presence is the only refuge the dark cannot reliably occupy. Practical step: build a nightly somatic ritual. 10 minutes of progressive muscle release, 3 rounds of box breathing, and a grounding visualization in which you imagine roots running from the base of your spine into the planet. You do this consistently, and the attacks that once broke you will hit a wall. The wall is your trained nervous system. Night Attack 2. The siege of the mind. If the body attack tries to collapse your container, the mind attack attempts to commandeer your narrative. It floods you with obsessive thoughts, lies that replay like a scratched record, internal dialogues that magnify guilt and rewrite memory into shame. These assaults are clever. They mimic your voice and sound intimate. That's by design. Shadow speaks through your habits. The upside is this: by enduring the mind's siege, you learn mental hygiene and the discipline of witnessing. You discover that thoughts are tools, not emperors. You practice noticing a thought, labeling its story, fear, memory, and returning to steady attention. That simple act severs the attention supply that fuels the night demons. A practical step: create a 2-minute witnessing checkpoint at night. When panic arises, pause and say silently, "This is a thought named fear. It is happening, not who I am." Repeat until the loop thins. Over time, these pauses rewire the automatic reactivity that once sold your power to the dark. Both attacks work in tandem to do something paradoxical. They attempt to break you, and in breaking you, they reveal what will never break. The body attack forces you into somatic mastery. The mind attack forces you into cognitive sovereignty. But together they compress years of training into nights. But the dark hopes you will respond with avoidance medication, distraction, numbing screens, but avoidance is consent. The chosen ones who refuse consent learn instead to convert attack into curriculum. The pain becomes a syllabus. Learn to breathe, learn to watch, learn to anchor, learn to choose. There is a deeper ethical reason these two assaults come first. The cosmos wants guardians who are integrated, who can hold presence in a frail body while navigating a disciplined mind. A guardian who cracks physically but remains mentally stoic, or vice versa, is brittle. The trials are whole-making. The night burns what is compartmentalized until only coherent wholeness remains. We are being taught to be containers for power so that when greater attacks arrive, we do not leak or shatter. Now reflect, when the body speaks loudly at night, what have you avoided acknowledging in daylight? When your mind runs its loops, what unresolved contract are you still bargaining for? These are not just problems to fix, they are invitations to examine the seams of your life. The chosen one who leans into these questions emerges with a new currency: quiet resilience. They can stand when others fall because they have practiced standing in the small hours. Next, we will dissect night attacks 3 and 4, those that test your heart and your moral clarity, and reveal the precise practices that turn those wounds into weapons of service. The heart's crucible and the moral gauntlet. Night attacks 3-4 that forge a warrior of integrity. Night attack 3 is the assault on the heart, the slow, surgical pressure that targets what you love, how you love, and why you keep loving when the world rewards withdrawal. For dark chosen ones, the night often becomes a theater of emotional warfare. Dreams where loved ones betray you, vivid scenes replaying old wounds, or waves of grief that arrive with no clear origin. These attacks are not random cruelty, they are education. The dark knows that a guardian who can be bent by heartbreak will eventually bow to cynicism or lash out in bitterness. So it hammers at your attachments to see whether love in you is reactive or radiant. The lesson is ruthless but simple. Learn to love without ownership. When the heart is targeted, the antidote is deep witnessing and compassionate re-anchoring. You practice receiving pain without making it your identity. You practice grieving fully but briefly, so sorrow does not fossilize into a life sentence. Practical training looks like this. Create a heart debrief each morning. Write 3 sentences about last night's emotional weather. Name the feeling, and then ask, "But what does this feeling want to teach me?" The act of naming disarms the dramatics of the night and converts them into curriculum. But over time you'll notice grief becomes informative rather than overwhelming. Another practice is energetic containment. Before sleep, imagine a luminous boundary around your chest that softens outward like a halo but does not leak. This is not to shut down compassion, it is to prevent your heart from being weaponized by replayed scenes or parasitic sorrow. When a wave of relational doubt hits in the dark, bring attention back to the halo and breathe into it. Ask yourself, is this pain a message from my system, or is it an echo from someone else I am carrying? This discernment is the key skill of the heart-forged protector, being tender without being enslaved by other people's unresolved storms. Night Attack 4 is the moral gauntlet, the temptation sequence that appears as flattering visions, seductive opportunities, or the whisper of "you deserve more." At night, these temptations arrive dressed as righteous shortcuts, prestige without sacrifice, influence without accountability, intimacy without integrity. The dark deploys them because it knows ego will rationalize anything that feels like gain. Here the trial is not whether you will be tempted. The trial is whether you will let temptation define your compass. The cure is the development of a private tribunal, a habitual inner question you ask before any significant choice: will this expand who I am without breaking what I care for? If the answer is unclear, delay. If your inner tribunal consistently gets quiet, seek external counsel. But the chosen one trains both the gut and the circle. Practically, fortify yourself by establishing daily micropledges, 5 commitments you will not betray for any short-term benefit, e.g., I will not lie to protect comfort, and I will not use fear to guide others. Place these pledges on your nightstand. When a seductive thought arrives in the dark, read one aloud. The small, mechanical act of recommitting rewires the nervous system away from impulsive alliance with temptation. Equally important is cultivating accountability. Name one trusted person who will call you out and one ritual you will perform if you sense you're sliding fast. Confession, extra service. Temptation loves secrecy. Exposure kills it. There is also a deeper moral pedagogy here. The night does not only test that you obey rules, it tests whether you can hold complexity. Sometimes the morally upright choice looks painful: losing status, being misunderstood, letting go of a lucrative but toxic role. The dark uses the night to simulate those losses, preparing you for real-world costs, so that when the decision arrives, your muscle memory guides you. Ask yourself, when you wake in the night and your chest tightens over a choice, is that tightening fear or wisdom? If wisdom, lean into it. If fear, investigate the story behind it. Both heart and moral attacks converge on a single skill: integrative courage. It's one thing to be brave physically, it is another to remain soft and ethical while standing in the breach. The chosen one's task is to transform wounds into ethical architecture, boundaries that protect without cutting off, love that includes discernment, courage that refuses shortcuts. These nights teach you what purity of purpose actually costs, and they train you to pay that cost without losing yourself. So I'll ask you, quietly and earnestly now, what does your heart keep rehearsing in the dark? Which temptation appears again and again when your defenses are low? If you answered honestly, you've already begun the work. The night has pointed to the seams that need mending. Next, we will confront the final 3 night attacks: the siphoning of life force, the identity dissolution, and the ultimate test of sovereign service, and reveal the exact practices that convert those attacks into your superpower. The Sovereign Resurrection, how night attacks 5, 6, and 7 turn your life force into unstoppable power. Night attack 5 is the siphoning of life force, the quiet theft that leaves you waking exhausted, your creativity dulled, your mornings heavy as if sleep never happened. This attack is not dramatic, it is insidious. It comes as lingering fatigue, as dreams that drain you instead of renewing, as a sense that something invisible took a part of you and walked off with it. For dark chosen ones, this is common because your field attracts attention, not all of it benevolent. Entities, emotional vampires, unresolved ancestral contracts, and even your own unprocessed patterns can siphon energy from you while your conscious guard is down. The lesson here is energetic sovereignty. You must learn to become a steward of your vitality rather than a passive reservoir others dip into. Practically begin with the fundamentals, ritualize your sleep and your waking. Create an exit and entry protocol for your field. Before bed, do a 10-minute clearing, light a candle, cup your hands over your heart, breathe 5 slow breaths, and say aloud a concise boundary: this night returns only that which is mine. All debts are closed. When you wake, perform a simple charge, 3 sun breath cycles. Inhale for 4, hold 4, exhale 4, while visualizing sunlight filling the center of your chest. These micro-rituals create procedural friction that discourages parasitic attachments. Next, practice chord awareness. Without dramatic imagery, learn to feel where you habitually leak relationships that require constant emotional rescue, places where you overgive, habits where you numb. Announce small withdrawals, limit calls, shorten exposure to draining news, place clear time limits on energy exchanges. Over time, the siphons close. Energy conservation becomes an ethical practice, not selfishness. The night attack 6 is identity dissolution, the uncanny unraveling that makes you question who you are. At night, you may wake with memories that feel alien, voices that recite narratives you had long buried, or a deep confusion about what you stand for. The shadow uses identity dissolution as a forged weapon. If it can make you doubt your story, it can rewrite your actions. The antidote is radical narrative authorship. You must become the primary editor of your life story, repeatedly and deliberately. This is done by reclaiming authorship during low-energy windows. Write your values before bed in a single sentence. Repeat a short phrase that encapsulates your mission upon waking, and practice a weekly editor's review, where you journal decisions you made and ask, did this choice reflect who I intend to be? When your narrative muscle strengthens, the night's attempts to dissolve you become mere noise. Another precise technique is memory hygiene. The night often recycles old emotional patterns because they still have unresolved charges. We create a container to process them, a 10-minute memory transfer, where you identify one repetitive dream or intrusive thought, write it down, then rip the paper or burn it safely as a symbolic release. This is not theatrics. Ritual externalizes internal patterning and signals to your nervous system that the story is being contained, not lived. You don't erase lessons, you refuse to be redefined by them. Night Attack 7 is the ultimate test, the call to sovereign service. Once you've weathered the siphons and solidified your identity, the night will escalate into invitations that test your willingness to serve at cost. These come as visions of large stakes, calls to sacrifice comfort, or aching awareness of suffering in the world that will not leave you. This attack is paradoxically the most sacred. It reveals whether your power will be hoarded or offered. The dark tempts with martyrdom or grandiosity. True service refuses both. Sovereign service is the discipline of choosing the right battle, not every battle. It asks you to protect boundaries and also to step forward when the system requires you. To train for sovereign service, adopt 3 practices. First, the triage protocol. When a call to help arises, ask 3 questions. Can I help without compromising my core? Is this impact aligned with my gifts? Will my intervention create dependency or empowerment? If the answers are mostly yes, proceed. If no, design a generative alternative. Second, build a support network of equals, people who neither idolize you nor drain you, who share burdens and provide clear feedback. Third, cultivate ritual replenishment, regular retreat days, seasonal fasts from digital noise, and service contracts that include restoration clauses, e.g., agree to take a week of rest after major interventions. Service without restoration is a slow surrender into the night's appetite. But there is a deeper integration that all 3 final attacks require: the shift from personal heroism to systemic guardianship. The night's trials sculpt you not to be a lonely warrior, but to become a node in a larger web of resilience. You are trained to hold a particular frequency in the field so others can anchor to it. That means your self-care is political, your solitude is strategic, your boundaries are gifts to the collective. The more rigorously you steward your vitality, narrative, and service capacity, the less the night's attacks can touch you, and the more you function as a lighthouse for others wandering in darkness. Now I will give you a compact night protocol that synthesizes everything practical and immediate. 1. Evening reset, 15 minutes, light breath, boundary statement, core check. 2. Sleep fortress, immediately before bed, halo visualization around chest, protection mantra repeated 3 times, sleep in a cool, dark room with minimal EMF. 3. That morning recharge, 5 to 10 minutes, sun breaths, single line value affirmation, hydration. 4. Weekly editor, 30 minutes, journaling, burning, releasing 1 recurring pattern, scheduling 1 restorative act. 5. Monthly covenant, with an accountability friend, review 1 major service act, and confirm restoration plan. Ask yourself now, when the night strips you, are you learning or merely suffering? The difference decides whether the darkness becomes your forge or your tomb. If you will lean into the disciplined protocols above, you will not only endure, you will ascend. You will transform nightly attacks into a curriculum of sovereign power, capable of standing in the world without being eroded by it. So now I ask you, deeply and plainly, will you accept the discipline required to be a dark, chosen one, a life that asks for nights of trial in exchange for days of unimaginable service? If you say yes, then rise into ritual. If you say no, then at least know why you are choosing something else. The night always asks, only the brave answer.